好，大家请合掌。我们三称南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。请放掌。大家阿弥陀佛。
Amitabha. Today, we will be introducing the 49 years of the Buddha's life during which he expounded the Dharma. The content is a little difficult, so I would like to ask the students to avoid snacking during class. Otherwise, you might get lost.
不出来。
走到去迷宮嗰度。
上个星期我们说到，佛陀尝试了印度当时候各种外道的修持方法。
Buddhist practices in India during his time, even reaching the highest point attainable by worldly meditation, the state in which cognition is absent yet not absent. However, he discovered that he was still unable to attain liberation. Therefore, he went to the snow mountains and practiced ascetic practices for 6 years. Every day, he ate only 1 grain of wheat and 1 sesame seed and became only skin and bone. He practiced ascetic practices that others could not practice. However, after 6 years, he still did not realize the path. So he came down from the mountains after receiving an offering of milk rice gruel from a milkmaid and regaining his physical strength. He crossed the Ganges River and arrived at the Bodhi tree. He sat in meditation under the tree for 49 days. The day he became 30, on the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, he realized the fruition of Buddhahood. He then exclaimed, "Strange indeed," 3 times and said, "All living beings have the wisdom."
而是透过真修实证
and virtuous harmonics of the Tathagata. It is only because of false thoughts and attachments that they cannot realize them.
原本佛陀在证道以后，马上要入涅槃的。一方面，因为他所证得的
The Buddha originally planned to immediately enter nirvana upon becoming awakened. For one, the Dharma he had realized was subtle, profound, and wonderful. So he was afraid that living beings would not believe it and would even slander it. In addition, he contemplated us living beings and saw that we were confused and upside down, stubborn and foolhardily, and difficult to teach and regulate. If we remain long in the world, it would not be of much help to living beings, so the Buddha wanted to enter nirvana immediately after realizing the path. At this time, Brahma from the great Grandma heaven quickly descended and knelt before the Buddha, pleaded, "May the Buddha show compassion and teach living beings undergoing suffering and hardship how to leave suffering and attain bliss." Because the king of the great Brahma heaven requested the Dharma, the Buddha remained in the world and spoke Dharma for 49 years. Before explaining the chronological order of the Buddha's propagation of the Buddha Dharma, the 5 periods described in the 3-character sutra, let us first take a look at how the teachings of the 5 periods came about. The so-called classification of teachings, which embodies the wisdom of Chinese Buddhism. What is the classification of teachings? Various classification schemes were created by Chinese patriarchs to classify the teachings spoken by the Buddha throughout his life, according to the depth of the principles taught as well as the chronological order in which they were spoken. After Buddhism arrived in China, Chinese monastics classified Buddhist sutras according to their own understanding of them. In total, 10 different classification schemes were created. I recall back in 2011, when I was volunteering in Taipei, I once listened to the master's explanation of National Master Qing Liang's commentary on the Avatamsaka Sutra. When explaining the classification of teachings, The master had said some classify the teachings into 3 categories, some into 4, and some into even 8. The various classification schemes really causes us to scratch our head in befuddlement. Upon hearing the master say this back then, I had felt an inexpressible sense of connection. I had thought, the master really understands us. Just prior, I had the thought, how can we remember all of these classifications? But the master had also said, since these classifications were made by patriarchs and eminent monks, let us take a look at them. So let us take a look at a few. First, there is Dharma Master Kumara Jiva's single voice teaching system. He advocated that the Buddha use the single voice to speak all the teachings. Those with the disposition for the great vehicle would understand relevant principles to them. When they heard the Buddha, those with disposition for the lesser vehicle would understand relevant principles to them from the same exact teaching. It is like when it rains. Large trees can absorb more water, whereas small trees absorb a smaller amount. Each takes its fill. That's why it's said, the Buddha teaches the Dharma with a single voice, and living beings understand it according to their dispositions. Next is the half and full teaching systems. Half refers to individual Sanskrit characters, which signifies children learning foundational skills such as pinyin. Full refers to Sanskrit passages. In other words, the half-word teaching refers to lesser vehicle principles, while the full word teaching refers to great vehicle sutras. Great Master Xuanzang and others advocated for classifying the teachings into 3 categories. The most influential classification schemes are the one by Great Master Zhize of the Tiantai school, which classifies the teachings into the Tripitaka, shared, distinct, and perfect teachings, and the one by Dharma Master Fa Zhang of the Tang dynasty, which classifies the teachings into the lesser, beginning, final instant, and perfect teaching. Have you begun scratching your heads in befuddlement yet, as the master hinted at? If so, don't worry. The master also said you only need to know that these schemes exist, so relax. These classification schemes are like prescriptions given by doctors to patients. The prescriptions themselves are neither good nor bad. Any prescription is good as long as they can cure the patient's illnesses. Let's talk about the 3-character sutra proposed by the Great Master Zhize. He categorized the Buddha's teaching chronologically into 5 periods. The first is the Avatamsaka period. This is the first sutra spoken by the Buddha after he was awakened. So the sutra says, the Buddha began his great teaching by expanding on the Avatamsaka Sutra. There are 2 analogies used to describe the Avatamsaka period, which was taught to the great Bodhisattvas. The first is the sun shines on the mountain peaks. When the sun first rises, it only shines on the mountain peaks. Similarly, when the Avatamsaka was spoken, only the Bodhisattvas of the 10th ground could see and hear. The Arhats and Bhikshus of the lesser vehicle could neither see nor hear anything. So it said, one has eyes but cannot see Vairochana. One has ears but could not hear the perfect and sudden teaching. Although they had eyes, they could not see Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in the 1,000-foot tall body of Vairochana. Those of the 2 vehicles also had ears, but they could not hear the Buddha teaching the great Dharma of the Avatamsaka. As the sutra says, the Buddha began his great teaching by expounding on the Avatamsaka. What is the second analogy? It is like fresh milk from a cow. Fresh milk extracted from a cow is rich in nutrients and packed with energy. So adults can drink it, but children will upset their stomachs upon consumption. Milk is a precious source of energy that can sustain human lives, just as the Dharma taught by the Buddha can nurture our wisdom lives. However, beings exhibiting small potentials cannot accept the Dharma, just as children who drink fresh milk will upset their stomachs. Seeing that the beings exhibiting small potentials could not accept the great vehicle Dharma, the Buddha proceeded to explain to them the small vehicle Agama Sutras for the next 12 years. Then it takes us to the second period, the Agama period. The Buddha transformed from his splendid 1,000-foot reward body into the 16-foot of a body of a bhikshu. In his form, he is comparable with the height of humans. The Agama is a Sanskrit word that is translated as peerless Dharma, meaning nothing in this world, including all non-Buddhist teaching, is loftier than this Dharma. During the Agama period, the Buddha taught the Dharma of the Four Noble Truths, which involves coming into being and ceasing to be. The Four Noble Truths are suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation suffering, and the path. What do you say? Is life as a human full of suffering or not? Falling sick is suffering. Not having those who you like besides you is suffering. And having those who you always hate around is even more suffering. Therefore, the Buddha taught the principles of impermanence, suffering, and emptiness, telling practitioners of the two vehicles to contemplate. Everything in this world is ever-changing and impermanent. The good will pass, and the bad too will pass. If one remains free of attachment, then one can transcend samsara. The Agama period belongs to the Tripitaka teaching, which includes the Sutra, Vinaya, and Shastras. The Buddha used skillful means during this period to enable those with potentials for the lesser vehicle to transcend samsara within the three realms. According to the analogy of the 5 times a day, now it's like the sun has risen several dozens of feet into the sky. Now it can shine on the deep valleys. This indicates that the lesser vehicle practitioners can understand the Buddha Dharma. Even the most ignorant people can understand the Buddha Dharma. By hearing the teachings, keeping them in mind, and practice accordingly, living beings can transcend samsara. So according to the 5 flavors, what is the Agama period compared to? It is like milk produces cream. And this milk, which is refined to cream, is suitable for children to consume. After the Buddha spoke the Agama Sutras, he knew that everyone had already obtained resolute faith, so he spoke the great vehicle and lesser vehicle teachings together during the Vaipulya period. So this Vaipulya is translated as Fangden in Chinese. The Chinese character Fang represents the 4 directions and skillful means. The Chinese character Deng means impartiality. More precisely, Fang represents the expounding of the 4 teachings: Tripitaka teaching, shared teaching, distinct teaching, and perfect teaching. Deng indicates the impartial teaching of the beings of the 3 kinds of potentials: superior, middle, and underdeveloped potentials. The Vaipulya period belongs to the shared teaching, Why is this type of teaching called the shared teaching? It connects with what was spoken before and what was spoken after, and it connects with the great vehicle and the lesser vehicle. It connects with the lesser vehicle Tripitaka teachings spoken before and with the great vehicle teachings spoken afterwards. In other words, it connects with the previous Agama period and the ensuing Praprajna period. The great vehicle and the lesser vehicle practitioners together studied the shared teaching. According to the analogy of the 5 rivers, this period is like cream produces buttermilk. Buttermilk is edible by both children and adults. It is safe to eat and does no harm. And based on the analogy of the 5 times of day, this period is like mealtime. It is the position of the sun at around 9 or 10 in the morning. At this time, the sun shines on the mountain peaks and the plain, which represents that both lesser vehicle and great vehicle practitioners are able to learn this Dharma. During this time, Shakyamuni Buddha helped lesser vehicle practitioners see that all the phenomena in this world changes according to causes and conditions, and that our bodies and minds are neither permanent nor real, thereby freeing them of their attachment to dharmas. The 4th period talks about prajna. What teaching does prajna belong to? Prajna belongs to distinct teaching. What is distinct teaching? It is called this because it is distinct from what came before and distinct from what comes after. It is different from the agama that came before and different from Vaipulya that comes after. It is also distinct from the Dharma flower and the nirvana periods after it. Using the 5 flavors as an analogy, when ghee is clarified from buttermilk, it is only suitable for adults to consume and eat. This shows that the prajna dharma door from the distinct teaching can only be learned by prohibitional teaching bodhisattvas with roots in the great vehicle. Another analogy is when the sun shines during this is when the sun is between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and it's almost noon. So what is the phrase, to mature the 2 vehicles and teach the bodhisattvas mean? After going through the Vaipulya period, practitioners of the lesser vehicle realize that the lesser vehicle isn't the ultimate truth. Why isn't the lesser vehicle the ultimate truth? It is because practitioners of the lesser vehicle only seek to escape from the 3 realms and the cycle of birth and death on their own. They do not care about the liberation from life and death for others. Now the Buddha is encouraging sound hearers to turn towards the spirit of bodhisattvas and learn from them, turning them from lesser vehicles into great vehicles. This means that not only do they help themselves, they also benefit others. Even though practitioners of the lesser vehicle brought forth their bodhi resolve and practiced the bodhisattva path, they still have a lot of false thoughts and attachments from doubts. This is why the Buddha spoke of the wonderful wisdom of prajna and the wisdom of emptiness prajna dharma door in order to completely eradicate the doubts and attachments of the practitioners of the lesser vehicle. The next 5th period is Dharma flower and Nirvana period. The Buddha told a very interesting story when he spoke the Dharma flower sutra. There was a great wealthy elder who lived with around 20 to 30 children in a large mansion. One day, when he came back home, he noticed that the house was on fire. But the peculiar thing is that, regardless how loud the wealthy man called out to the children, the group of children only focused on playing and paid no attention to him. Seeing that the fire was spreading rapidly, he suddenly had an idea and shouted, "Children, come quickly. I have a very fun sheep cart, deer cart, and an ox cart here, and you can pick any you like. If you come late, they won't be here anymore. Hurry up and come on out. Hearing that there are fun carts outside, the children raced out of the burning house. As soon as they were out, they demanded the carts from the father, and the father said, "I lied to you." And the children were all furious. At this time, the father asked his attendants to bring out a meticulously decorated great white ox cart. When the children saw that the great white ox cart was filled with pearls and all the treasures that one can imagine, they were ecstatic. The great white ox cart illustrated in this story refers to the one and only Buddha vehicle. Those who like the gentle sheep cart are practitioners of the lesser vehicle. Those who like the deer cart with a bit more strength refers to the sound hearers and the Pratyeka Buddhas of the medium vehicle. And those who like the ox cart with even more strength represent the bodhisattvas of the great vehicle. And now they all like the great white ox cart, which is to become a Buddha. This story describes the period of Dharma and flower and nirvana to be like the sun sitting directly in the middle of the sky, shining upon the vast land. When the sun is at the middle of the sky, it can shine and illuminate anywhere, be it tall mountain, a narrow valley, or a flat plain.
比方在经过教化小乘、二乘以及大乘出阶的人之后，都还归摄受到为一佛乘里头来。那在五位当中呢，就比喻叫醍醐。醍醐
The analogy of the 5 layers, ghee is among the finest among the dairy flavors. And this means that becoming the Buddha is the highest level one can attain. So let us review a bit. This chart summarizes the Buddha's teaching throughout his lifetime, which are the 5 periods and the 3 shines of Avatamsaka, and the 5 favors of nirvana. The first, the Buddha, after the Buddha was awakened, he taught the great vehicle, Bodhisattva. And this is the fresh milk that is only suitable for adults. The second, when the Agama period comes, the Buddha transformed into the 10-foot tall bhikshus form and expounded Dharma that is suitable for children, which is the Dharma of the 4 Noble Truths. The next third period, Vaipulya period, which is suitable for both adults and children, and this is analogous to the sun shining on the plants. When we reach the 4th period, the opportunity was ripe to teach practitioners of the lesser vehicle to learn the bodhisattva spirit of benefiting others. And the last period is the nirvana period. The Buddha spoke of the one and only Buddha vehicle, so that everyone in this assembly can receive the prediction to realize Buddhahood. Now, we have finished introducing the Buddha's propagation of the Buddha Dharma. And here's a question for everyone. Among all the sutras that the Thus Come One expounded on, did they really follow the 5 categories in sequence? One after another? Or did the Thus Come One transmit Dharma with flexibility and in accord to each individual? In other words, he did not teach a set sutra within a set time period. Here are 4 options to choose from. Please choose one.
来选你的答案。第一个就是50的教法，一个接一个。第二个，佛陀是因材施教
The
的。
first is the 5 categories were taught in sequence. The second, the Dharma was taught according to the propensity of living beings and was not set in any particular
上
sequence.
面的通通
3,
对。
all of the
好，
above.
现在请同
4,
学
none of the
按
above,
下
none of
你
the
的
above.
答案。好，大家都选好你的答案了，是吗？
Okay, seems like everyone selected their answer. Let's take a look at the results.
这个经文上面讲，50教如实说，亦融通，亦分别。所以智者大师认为
The 5 periods of teaching is thus said it is interrelated and distinct.
就是也有
Great Master Zizhe also believes that
别。
both of these methods of teaching hold true,
接下
this
来
meaning that the teachings are
我们
both
要
interrelated
请
and
同
distinct.
学来做问
Next,
题的讨论。
let's
这个经文上
we'll
面
gather
说
everyone to come to do some discussion
禅经
about the sutra.
最后说
In the
行
sutra,
正常，服戒律。
it says,
现在
before
要
the
请
Buddha
同学
entered
分
nirvana,
组来讨论。这里有2个问题。
oh, Nirvana
第一
Sutra
个
was said
是
the last.
为什么佛陀在入涅槃之前，要特
And
别
the question
来
is, before the Buddha
说
entered nirvana,
众
why did he
生
make a
都有
special
佛
effort to
性
expound
呢？
that all living beings have the Buddha
第二
nature?
个，
Why
又
did he
为什么要
specifically
特别强调
emphasize
辅
and
助
support the
戒律
Vinaya?
呢？强调戒律很重要呢？好，现在呢要请同学分组讨论，但是你不需要
We're
做
going
什
to
么
split into
的
breakout
网络
rooms
技术人员，
for a
我们
discussion.
分到小课室去。
You don't need to do anything, but our support here will split you all up into your own breakout rooms.
So do we know
可不可以请？哦，要回去了，是不是可以请？等一下，有人在大教室法师点我们组的时候，能够代表我们发言吗？
大概就是我想应该是这个意思，这两句话大约是这样式儿。
我可以发言吗？可以啊。我本人比较粗略的一个的。Hello。
好，大家都讨论好了。
好。
好，都回来了大教室了。
So everyone finished discussion and coming back to the main room.
I suppose I better say something. Well, basically, everybody else is kind of quiet except maybe for 1-2 persons speaking. We, in regards to the Buddha nature, we kind of talked about what Buddha nature is. It's our pure self, and we didn't really go into much more than explaining what pure Buddha nature is. The second part of the question, we kind of just talked about how the Vinaya is just like talking about laws and order in our mundane world. That's all we kind of touched on.
好，请翻译组的人翻译一下好吗？
刚刚第一组的组长报告就是说，听得到吗？
Can you please translate? 好，在等这个翻译的人之前可不可以请译组的人跟我们分享你们讨论的？译组的。
一组，我们请亲宾贵宾，请您跟大家分享好吗？贵宾，
哎，我在，阿弥陀佛。大家好，阿弥陀佛。因为我觉得，佛陀认为众生皆有佛性，就是要让大家要以戒律，以持戒来把我们的佛性显现出来。因为我众生的可能我们的根基都比较肉劣，然后又时常可能会因为我们的习气，让我们没有能力把我们的佛性，我们的真心显现出来，所以要以戒律，让我们可以约束自己，让我们自己把我们的本性可以显现出来。阿弥陀佛。
很好请问翻译组的人都在吗？
听得到吗
Yes， 可以听得到。
？OK， 刚刚是哪一组？
E 组跟 A 组。
Okay, so what the E group just shared was that they believe that all living beings have the Buddha nature, and it is shown or presented through by holding the precepts. Michael, were you able to get the A group's translation?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
OK. 刚才 A 组他们讲的就是他们主要是讨论这个自信，然后每个人都有的这个自信是清净的，然后就讨论到这边。
好，这个地方我们有2个问题。第一个问题就是佛陀在入涅槃之前，为什么特别强调众生都有佛性？因为我们不要因为佛不在了，就妄自菲薄，说我们自己没有办法成佛。所以因为我们都有佛性，只要透过我们的努力，一样都可以像佛陀一样可以成佛。
So to remind everyone, there are 2 parts or 2 questions in this discussion. The first is why did the Buddha make a special effort to talk about the Buddha nature? And the second is why was there an emphasis in the Vinaya and
对，那个第2个部分为什么要特别强调这一个戒律？因为唯有依照戒律去修持这个佛法，才能够长久住世。
And the reason is because if we follow the teachings of the Buddha and teachings of the Vinaya, are we able to is the Buddha's teaching able to continue to exist in this world?
好，那接下来我们就要看看我们的作业
Next, let's take a look at our assignment.
是不是我要去？好，那我们接下来我们要来看我们的作业。这个作业是这个《楞严经》是佛陀在62岁的时候。
This assignment for Unit 2, the Buddha spoke of the Shurangama Sutra when he was 62 years old. Which period does this sutra belong to among the 5 periods that we talked about in this lesson? All right, the second question. In India, They abolished the caste system really early in its independence. However, such a system is so deeply rooted in society, in the Indian society. But this caste system still exists to this day. Why do you think it is so hard to break the system of inequality? A reminder that this question has no fixed answer. Just simply share your perspective and views on this question. So now the class basically ends here, but we would like to, before we transference, we would like, because of the war between the Ukraine and Russia, a lot of people are suffering. So in the past, someone asked the Venerable Master, how does a war happen? And the Master responded and said, this is because we have aggressiveness or anger within us. And it's because of this, it causes war. And the person followed up by asking, how do we end wars? The Venerable Master said, we should be kind and compassionate. And this is the root of ending wars. And this is why every one of us can do something and contribute to this world and be mindful of everything we do during our daily activity. So now let us do the transference and keep in mind what we have, the little merit that we gained today, and to pray for world peace.
庄严佛净土，上
报
报四重恩，下济三途苦。若有见闻者，业发菩提心，尽此一报身，同生极乐国。顶礼老和尚，请做三问讯。大家阿弥陀佛。